Okay, so if I was to take a poll of why you decided to take this class, first of all, online, and second of all, in this condensed version, I would kind of guess some answers. In fact, some of you have already let me know because I accidentally launched this class in August as a full semester class, and immediately I got input. Wait a minute, I really wanted this for X reasons, and others of you have just kind of reflected about this back to me in some emails. Why are you in this condensed version of an online class? And we love the flexibility, don't we? I mean, come on, let's face it. You see my office here. You see that my buffet drawer is actually filled with DS cases, and it's always hanging out like this. They don't know how to shut drawers. I don't know. It's missing from their genetic makeup. I don't know what it is. And if you look in the background, you see poetry hanging on bright pink paper that's all about baseball, and you see kids' pictures. My whole point here is we all signed up for this gig because it's flexible, right? And yet you can also see by all my pictures, even hanging around my neck, that people are really important to us. And I'm going to guess that a lot of you didn't sign up for online just because you wanted to avoid people. In fact, probably the flexibility part played a bigger impact. I think one of my fallacies on online education when I first started teaching was that, oh, this is where people who don't like people hide. And some of you might be saying, wait a minute, that is me. I really don't like being around people. And that's all good too. But I really think that the best, and actually research supports this, that the best online experiences we can have are when we create a sense of community with one another. And hopefully this last week, in doing your reflection activity and some of these discussion board activities, you're starting to get that feeling like, okay, I kind of know some people here. The other part of this, just so you know, the way this course is set up is I want it to be extremely flexible. I want you to be able to work ahead if you need to. I want you to be able to sit down and do it all in one night if that's the only option you have, and that's why all the deadlines are on Sunday. But in order to really get the feeling of community and the advantages of collaboration and interaction that we know produces really good academic results and learning results is if we really engage in those processes. So this coming week, this week you have an opportunity to do this, and the way that this course sort of rests on you is that I'm going to always keep those dates as Sunday at midnight, except for the very final paper because I have to have time to grade it. But I'm going to ask a favor. Could you, if possible, post to the discussion board and to the peer editing assignments earlier in the week, like let's say Wednesday or Thursday? Here's my take on this. This is hyperdrive fast stuff. If you can get your first discussion board turned in by Wednesday, then that gives people time to give you feedback and you to give other people feedback by Thursday. Let's say your rough draft is written by Friday, that gives people the weekend. Now, I hate to put things onto the weekend, so I guess if possible, if that Wednesday or Thursday could be the target for getting the discussion board and the peer editing posted for this week, that'd be great and helpful. I've kind of gotten ahead of myself in talking about community because I get all fired up about that. So let me back up a little bit to this week, and I'm looking at the syllabus, and you'll notice that I purposely label what parts I want you to skim and what parts I want you to read. Otherwise, this looks like a tremendous amount of reading, and it's still heavy enough because you are getting a semester credit for this course, even though it's condensed. So the skim part, that's more resources. If you have questions on how to write this kind of paper, or looking for examples of the kind of paper that we're going to write, and the first paper is a summary response. The reading is where we're going to draw our research from. I do not want, hear me clearly on this, any other sources used except for the ones in the reading for the first papers for this course. The final paper, you get to go crazy and do your research. For the first shorter papers, only the readings are your resources. This should save you time. I know that you may have a better argument if you could go outside and draw in all these things that you want to talk about. You can still use resources that you just happened by, like, oh, hey, I was watching the show the other night, and you can incorporate something from it, or something that you'd read at one point. But as far as your real key pieces of research, it's going to be all in the readings. This week you're reading Bryson, Lurie, Coffer, Grandin, Huxley, and Reichel. You're going to choose from one of those your paper summary response. But to key up to that, after you read, you're going to post, I believe I asked you to post 2 or 3, please check the particulars in course content, and then reply to a couple peers. And what I want the discussion board to be is a model, a microcosm, like a pre-writing of the final paper. So we're moving towards summary response. So this week you can do a little bit of summary, but I want you to be heavy on the discussion board on your response, your reaction, what you think the author's argument is. And sometimes it's more subtle because a narrative isn't a strong argument. By virtue of the details they give, there's a sense of what they believe to be true. There's some assumptions going on here. So you draw out what you think the author's assumptions are, and then you juxtapose your own ideas with those. Maybe you totally fit like a glove. You read that author and you go, oh yeah, that's where it's at. Or maybe you read something, the one author particularly is talking about a time in history and a place in the world that we're not living in, and but you might compare it. That would be a response. You might also just say, whoa, I could not agree with this author. There's not a point where I can agree with. More often we find parts that we agree with and parts that we disagree with, but that's not to say that we say, you can think whatever you want, here's the pros and cons. No, we're not doing that. We know that we can think what we want. We're not going to give our readers permission. We are going to try to figure out what the author is saying, that's their they say, and what we are saying in reaction or response, like a conversation. So the discussion boards are starting those conversations. You can pose questions to other classmates, but whatever you post in discussion board, you're trying to move forward the conversation so that somebody else could chime in and say, ooh, good point, but I wonder about this, okay? You become their they say, and they respond to you, and vice versa. When you turn in the discussion board, I know that there's a feature where I can grade directly off the discussion board, but it really helps me a lot if you can just copy and paste your initial posts and your reply posts onto one document or right into the Dropbox. I don't care if it's not an attachment. Sometimes it's actually easier for me if you just put it right in there, and I can do a little check. I'm not going to require you to post what other people reply to you because you can't control that. So other than posting early, there's not a lot you can do. Do try to mix it up. If you see nobody's getting replies on something, try to give them a reply. Then the third assignment for the week, so that's just the first. That's discussion board. So you're posting to the discussion board and to the Dropbox. Then the peer edit also goes both places. For your peer edit assignment, you're posting all or part of your paper. On that paper posting, you are asking for feedback on a specific area, and then you are replying to other students about their paper. Be picky. I'm picky, so you need to be picky. Okay, what standard are we using for measurement? It's in the course content. There's a rubric on a feedback form. I want a copy of that feedback form onto your final draft of your paper, which is the third assignment. Okay, so let me review. Discussion board, post to the discussion board and to the Dropbox. It's in response to the readings. There is no prompt question. I'm leaving it open-ended on purpose. Don't let that frighten you. Peer edit, you're posting all or part of your rough draft and you're responding to others, and you're copying and pasting your initial response and your reply responses to the assignment Dropbox. Then finally, the final draft. That just comes to me. It includes the feedback form from course content, copy and pasted. If you copy and paste using the furthest left option, it'll keep the source formatting and you'll see the chart actually show up. You fill in the top part of the feedback form, I fill in the bottom. Again, remember that community theme I said? I believe part of creating that community theme is to create a conversation out of your paper. Not just to have it be a one and done paper, but that you tell me what you're thinking about your paper, and then I give you feedback about what you're thinking about your paper and my thinking about your paper, so that it's more of a conversation and will always lead into, here's what you can do for next time that's good that you already did before, and here's what you maybe want to change for next time. Okay, so just to clarify what this paper is about, you're doing a summary and a response to one of the reading selections. You may use ideas from the discussion board as a way to springboard into your paper. Things to consider. For every reading, everything has an argument inherent in it. even if it's not meant to be persuasive. And your summary response is going to be an argument. It's going to use they say, I say as a structure. And if you look back at the thesis worksheet that you just completed, you'll notice that all of those, that whole process leading to the thesis creates a they say, I say. That's what that whole although clause thing is. Even page back to the reflection worksheet, you can use those reflection statements as templates for creating a thesis statement. I am looking for a strong thesis argument. Because this is summary response, every paper should have a mention of the author and the title. Titles are put in quotes because all of these are essays, none of them are novels. Title and a title in quotes and the author should appear somewhere in the introduction because you're setting a context that this is a summary response paper. So an example might be this. Although Reichel, we also talk about them with their last names. You can use first and last, but don't ever refer to the authors on a first name basis. Although Reichel is speaking of history not being taught from a Jewish Holocaust perspective, I believe that we have similar concerns with parts of history that are not being taught well to our students and through our media sources, even in our culture today. Okay? You see, you know I'm talking about Reichel's article, and this makes no sense until you've read her. And then I have a response, and if this is what you were going to write about, feel free to borrow that, okay? The other thing that's going to be important as you develop your paper, after you create that argument, is that you lead, that you make sure that we know when you're talking, when the author is talking. It's okay to use personal pronouns, just don't use you. So I could say in my first paragraph, Reichel talks about a time, about her growing up and trying to ask tough questions about a very sensitive time in history. It's not unfathomable that people wouldn't want to talk about it, especially adults, blah, blah, blah. I see this happening in our own culture. Do you see how I switched there? And it's obvious because I used personal I. You can do it without using personal pronouns, but be very clear on when you are switching from what the author is saying and your summary of what the author is saying and what you're saying. My final concern on this paper is that you cite, and because this is an academic paper, just a flimsy rule of thumb would be every paragraph needs a citation. Not every paragraph needs a quote. There's a difference, and some of you know what I'm talking about. But this is a very common error that we think that we only put the parenthetical MLA citation in when we are using a quote, and that's wrong. We actually need to cite whenever we paraphrase the source or let the author have a voice, which we want to have let the author have a voice, right? Why do we cite like this? It's not just to give credit. I think I grew up thinking, well, it shows that I'm not plagiarizing. That's true. But the other part is that the assumption in academic writing is that if I'm reading this for academic purposes, I may want to continue this study. And you putting a citation in there helps me to know where to find more information when I go to do my own research. So part of it is to build your credibility in an academic context. So think of that. And I'm never going to take points off for you over-citing. Over-quoting can be a problem, but putting too many citations in is not a problem. It's pain, but it's not a problem. So that's about all I can think of right now. I know this is like trying to get a drink out of a fire hose, getting all this information at once, but hopefully it helps you get prepared and feel confident for next week. I know the first paper is always scary. I was a student just at the beginning of this semester, actually. I just finished a course and I remember thinking, oh man, I don't know what I want, and what if they don't like what I write, and are they sure? Check out the rubric, take a deep breath, ask me questions. We're going to get through this, and hopefully it'll be a great experience for you and me too. Have a great week.